Not the best news if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan. This is the second offseason in a row where Trey Hendrickson has requested a new contract or to be dealt to a new team. He's coming off a season where he led the league in sacks, so I feel like he's definitely in a position to demand a new contract. So for this offseason, right now, the Bengals have to deal with Trey Hendrickson, Jamar Chase, and maybe get something done with T. Higgin at the last moment. So a very, very critical offseason for the future and the present of the Cincinnati Bengals team. Let me know if you would pay Trey Hendrickson or would you let him walk. Now, he has 1 year left on his deal, and he's set to earn 15.8 mil in 2025. So not bad for him, but still, when you lead the NFL in sacks, you kind of deserve a raise to a certain extent. That's the kind of thing about this Bengals franchise. They are a franchise that doesn't really like to spend a lot of money. They don't really like to make a lot of acquisitions. So I'm kind of dubious if they will actually get a deal done with all three guys. I feel like they'll only get a deal done with Jamar Chase. I could totally see Trey Hendrickson playing out his final year in his contract. And you know what, man? If I'm his agent, I would definitely try to really pull for a trade if they're not going to give him a new contract, because that's kind of ridiculous. Back-to-back off seasons. He's your best player defensively, and the Bengals can't reward him with a new contract. Again, especially after leading the NFL with 17 and a half sacks. That's not nothing, bro. That's not nothing. So let me know if you think the Bengals are going to trade him or are they going to pay him. I feel like a lot of teams would definitely be interested in his services. Now, Joe Burrow even had something to say about the Bengals' upcoming offseason. He said this, quote, "We have the cap space to get it done. I want to make it happen. Everybody involved, Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Mike Gesicki, we all want to stay together. When you have guys that are motivated like that, I think you can get those things done." And he did say that he would, of course, quote unquote, consider restructuring his contract. We'll see if his actions follow his words, and if he does actually reconstruct his contract to allow the Bengals to re-sign all those guys. But that's great and all. It's just from the Bengals perspective and people who kind of want to part ways with some of those guys, I can't really blame them, just because that's the core of their team. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Trey Hendrickson. And when your core can't really make it to the playoffs, I think that's kind of troubling. I mean, if you think about it, take a look at the Rams core this past year. Stafford, Kyron, Puka, and Jared Verse. They made the playoffs. Or even take a look at the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen did not have a lot to work with this past season. So I don't know if it's their best move to re-sign all those guys. I got to be honest. They're definitely in a tricky position for sure. But no matter what, you have to re-sign Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, I don't know, man. It depends if he wants to take a bit of a discount, but like, does Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase really need T. Higgins to make the playoffs? I don't think so. I know he's definitely a great wide receiver and he's an asset for sure, but I would rather add another piece or two to that defense instead of paying T. Higgins like 30-40 mil a year. But that's just me. Trey Hendrickson, I feel like you have to pay that guy. Like Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, 100% you have to pay those two. Like, those are the pillars of your franchise right now, 100%. But T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki, I think you could let those guys walk. You could probably get Gesicki for a cheap contract, but still, man, I just don't think it's a priority. You let me know what the Bengals are going to do as far as re-signing all these guys, and do you think Joe Burrow is actually going to reconstruct his contract to make it happen? And, you know, a big thing why Zach Taylor is still the head coach of the Bengals is, like I mentioned, The Bengals ownership group does not like to spend a lot, and throughout history, they're just not a franchise that likes to throw around a lot of money. So the fact that Zach Taylor still has years left on his contract is a big reason why he's going to coach the Bengals in 2025. They don't want to pay two head coaches at the same time. I get it to a certain extent, but when you have two Hall of Fame players in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, you kind of got to take advantage of these years, man. And especially when Joe Burrow is kind of teetering on being an injury-prone player. I feel like he's hurt every other year, and this past year, completely healthy, MVP type of numbers, but they just missed out on the playoffs. I just feel like that's a waste of a year, a waste of Joe Burrow's prime, a waste of Jamar Chase's prime. For what? Because of Zach Taylor's incompetence for the first 2 months of the regular season? Just, it's a joke, man. It's a joke. So the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, they could re-sign all these guys, but I feel like until they actually get a legitimate head coach in Cincinnati, I don't think it's really going to matter, honestly. And to Zach Taylor's credit, it is impressive that he did beat Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes on the road, and the fact that they did make it to the Super Bowl and almost won. But still, man, we'll see how 2025 goes, but I feel like that could have just been a weird outlier year, maybe fluky. I'm not sure. I still believe in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It's just I don't believe in Zach Taylor, and it's just hard to be optimistic going forward when your owner just does not like to spend a lot of money, you know? So Bengals fans, talk to me. What would you do if you were the GM/owner of the Bengals? Who would you re-sign? Do you think the Bengals are going to be any good in the 2025 season? And you know, considering how they finished off this past year, this draft is going to be very critical for them. I feel like they have to hit on all their draft picks if they kind of want to be back in the playoff mix and actually be a serious contender to win a Super Bowl in the 2025 season. Because if not, I just don't see the 2025 Bengals being super competitive, just because I know they're not going to do a lot in free agency. Like, especially if they re-sign Jamar Chase or Trey Hendrickson, they're not going to make any crazy acquisitions. Let me know if you're more optimistic about the Bengals' future than I am, and let me know what you think about them and everything else in between. If you made this far, please subscribe and like the vid. It'd help out your boy a ton. That's all I got for right now. Peace.
First down at the 20. Looking long. And it's knocked down.
That's what you have to do as a defensive back. You got to wait to the last second. Wait till the receiver uses his hands. And once they go up, put your hand in between them and knock that football down. What a play. When you run the football like this and you show toughness, there is no doubt when you fake it and try to throw the football down the field, the quarterback's going to have all day to get it done.
And here's the toss. He's brought down. That's going to bring up fourth down.